Good morning, Bucknutters. It is Thursday, May 22nd, 2025. I am Dan Rubin. This is the Bucknuts Morning 5 and Change. This podcast covers the national champions. I'll be joined, and the foundation helped out. Look at my t-shirt. I'll be joined in just a sec here by the Dean, Bill Kurelic, and the Grand Poobah, Mark Porter. Mark, I don't think will be in motion for this podcast, which will be interesting. So his degree of difficulty and the danger factor. Who else podcasts? Who's the multitasker that Mark Porter is? I don't think anybody, but he'll be safer today, which is good. He's also probably well fed because he knows about Factor Meals. I got to tell you about our sponsor. This is one of our best. They've been with us right from the start here and been a big reason why we've been able to have the show we have. 2-minute meals, easiest way to take time out of meal prep that I have ever seen. And we've talked about this before. This is the TV dinner of the past that would have made everything better for you. It's just really delicious. I don't know how they make chicken good out of the microwave, but they have figured it out. You get outside now. The weather's getting good. Instead of prepping and cooking indoors, the meals arrive fresh and ready to eat, and there's plenty of options. 45 weekly menu options. They also have breakfast, on-the-go lunches. You got premium dinners, guilt-free snacks and desserts. Factor Meals, pack in the flavor, and there's no fuss. Get started at factormeals.com/bucknuts50 off. This is a great deal. Again, factormeals.com/bucknuts50 off and use code bucknuts50 off. You'll get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. That is a great deal. Bucknuts50 off at factormeals.com/bucknuts50 off for 50% off plus free shipping. Nothing's free when it comes to these guys, and I must issue a warning to all. Despite the fact that college is out and my house is full, my wife has all my kids up doing chores. I think there's 2 kids getting oil changes today and some other stuff. You know what that means? Brad's in town. So Brad, I put a block up so he can't see me, and that might distract him, but he's looking out the window. I propped him right near the front door, and he likes to protect the turf. So if you hear him barking, that means someone made the mistake of walking in front of our house. How dare they? But I digress, and I welcome in the Grand Poobah, Mark Porter, and the Dean, Bill Kurelic. Bill, question for you. Every time, that's awesome. Every time I turn on my computer or talk to you, it seems like we've offered another dude. Now we're dipping into years that make me feel so old that it's incredible. 2027, 2028. Will there be spacecraft moving around? We don't know, but there'll be offers to Ohio State guys. Can you bring us up to speed on what's gone on the last week? What offers have jumped out to you? What coach on the road is making an impact? The Dean, please set the stage as the Buckeyes attack the recruiting trail.
Well, not only do you mention 2027, 2028, Dan, but wasn't an offer, but I saw a young man this morning, 2029, tweet out that he is anxious to be at Ohio State's camp next month.
Not one of your grandchildren, is it, Bill?
Yeah, no, not quite. They're not that old yet, although they're getting there. 7 of them now. It's hard to believe, 7 grandchildren. But yeah, it's another one Ohio State offered, who just posted it this morning. Ethan Coach, he's a linebacker, 2027, from a very familiar high school, Bellflower, St. John Bosco High School in California. James Laurinaitis is out in California, has been, I should say, for a couple days, and so has Larry Johnson, been out there, and Matt Patricia. They have been mostly in Southern California, but they've been out in California Tuesday, Wednesday in particular, and I had an article about this yesterday late afternoon on our site. All the scholarship offers that they've made out there, it's at least a half dozen now, and it's interesting. Not only are they offering defensive linemen and linebackers. But James Laurinaitis stopped at Los Angeles Cathedral High School. And while he was there, an offer was extended to Quentin Hale, really one of the top wide receivers on the West Coast, class of 2027. So, they're all over the country, and new offers are going out, and they're teaming up to make offers. Brian Hartline was also on the phone with Quentin Hale. Ohio State, as I said, James Laurinaitis was at his school. So it's all setting the stage for a big month of June. We've got official visits starting just over a week from now. Next Friday, May 30th, official visits will start at Ohio State. And then June 5th, the camps will start at Ohio State. So going to be a very busy time, and you're going to want to be tuned into Bucknuts for the coverage.
Mark, what do you get the sense of when you talk to coaches that Ohio State is after more than anything else? It does seem to me that offensive line and defensive line, we're still getting – I find it very interesting that one of the major questions we're having to answer, and always this is just how it is at Ohio State. Look, they're being compared, the coaches are being compared to each other when it comes to recruiting. So that's a very difficult comparison. But I cannot believe that we are this far into it. People were complaining about Larry Johnson's age when this whole thing, when he got here. I cannot stress this to people enough. When Bill, you can tell people this eventually, and Mark too. When we first got here, I started doing this years ago, people were using the age argument against Larry then. The guys who were making that argument, a lot of them have retired because of age. Larry is the one who stuck it out. I don't understand how this argument still works. Mark, do you hear that? Because I was going to say this, Bill. It does seem like the angst we're getting now is more defensive line chatter. Mark, what do you hear about that?
Yeah, out on the road, people don't talk about Ohio State the way the fans of Ohio State talk about Ohio State. Most other coaches are jealous of Ohio State and think everything they're getting is much easier than the job they have, if that makes any sense. Where, those Ohio State guys, they just kind of tap guys on the shoulder and they get them. We got to go out here and, put our boots to the ground and meet moms and dads and do everything we can to sway these kids, where there's those few schools, Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, where, you have a little more credibility. There isn't much of that bickering on the road, over is that recruit good enough to go to Ohio State? I think in a class of 20 or 25 kids, there's always a couple kids you can pick on and say, well, they're not quite the 5-star that up here, but they're good. And I think maybe if I do hear anything, they'll say, man, we almost had that kid.
Yeah.
And then Ohio State pulled him at the last second. And they know maybe it would have been a 5-star for them, but man, did Ohio State really need him? He's not as good as whatever, maybe I've heard chatter like that where, there is a jealousy.
Bill, what do you think? Have you heard the chatter about defensive line? It's funny, we heard offensive line, and then Tyler Bowen just blew that out of the water. Good Lord. Talk about making an early impression. But that, keep in mind, we had, 6 weeks where all we really talked about on the recruiting side was offensive line. Then Tyler Bowen blew that up. What's your vibe, Bill? What are you hearing in terms of Ohio State's? We know they're the best at receiver and defensive back now, but are you hearing the angst about defensive line? I'm trying to get ahead of this bubbling feeling I'm getting on the front row.
Well, I'm seeing it on our message boards for sure. But, when it's all said and done, Larry Johnson on his timeline and his timetable gets the players to Ohio State, whether they be high school kids or transfer portal kids. Again, success in the transfer portal in that he got Bo Atkinson, and that was not an easy get. It didn't bring in a defensive tackle like Ohio State wanted to get, but again, those guys are few and far between, and the price tag for those guys for what you were getting was outrageous. So, you're not going to break the bank, and you're certainly not going to break the bank for somebody that's maybe just a rotational player rather than a difference maker, and not necessarily as good as what they have at Ohio State right now. So another thing that I think is interesting. Mark mentioned it, that when Ohio State walks in, and I've mentioned this before, that O on their shirt or sweater or jersey or jacket, it means a little bit more. It means something. I've had Ohio State coaches tell me that, when we walk in the building, that O or that Ohio State we're wearing means a lot. And also, Mark mentioned that while, sometimes coaches do say, hey, we had that kid and then Ohio State swooped in. There's the other side of the coin. You've got to give a lot of credit to Ohio State. They are not in the best recruiting area in the country. The Midwest is not what it used to be because of the population shift. There just aren't as many recruits in the Midwest as there used to be back 15 or 20, 30 years ago. Population shift in the South is where you want to be for maximum leverage and maximum prospects and all that.
Sure.
It's a little harder at Ohio State than it is, say, in Georgia, Florida, those places, because there are so many great players there. The weather is great and all that. Ohio State doesn't have those advantages anymore. They did have, once upon a time, there were so many great players in the Midwest. It's not that case anymore.
To put
Mark,
some
that
numbers,
feels like your wheelhouse.
Yeah, to put some numbers to what Bill just said, this is ballpark, but I think California puts about 400 Division I players out a year. Texas puts about 400 out a year. Florida puts about 400 out a year. And I think Georgia's in the 200s. We're about 130, 140. Now, within those numbers, what really matters is how many Power 5 prospects come out of that. Where in Ohio, maybe 10, 20, 25, 30, depending on how, like some are really the top 5 or the top 5. And then there's some other Power 5 kids in there that'll disperse. Well, to Bill's point, down in Florida, there might be 40 or 50 kids like that. Same with Texas,
Easily.
California. So, yeah, so you're like these upper echelon players. So there's a lot more to pull from down there. So, it's not awful to be in Ohio, and you can always still pull from those states, which, we've always done. But, yeah, Ohio, you wish you had a few more in your own backyard as freebies.
And I want to make sure people don't think I'm downplaying. There's a lot of good football players in Ohio.
Oh, yeah.
A whole lot. Ohio football is really, really good.
I think you're just saying you want more freebies.
Yeah,
Like, let's get a few more where we can pull them out of Columbus.
Population in other places.
Yeah, if Columbus was twice as big, you get a few more. Sorry.
No, you guys have nailed it. Not to mention, there's schools in all of those places that they're competing against. It's not like it's Idaho and Wyoming and something. Georgia is their chief competition. And I will say this: Georgia per capita, that's like player for player. I mean, I don't have the statistics to back it up. I would bet a lot that the state that produces the top 15 every year, if you could just take their top 15, Georgia would be in the mix, man. Georgia is sick. Atlanta football and that whole area, those suburbs that have grown up population-wise, it's ridiculous. Gwinnett County had an all-pro, they do your newspaper, so your all Gwinnett County Journal or whatever they call it down there, which wasn't all of Atlanta. And their teams looked like they were ridiculous. By the way, Caden McDonald was Defensive Player of the Year there, so that's good stuff. But, yeah, I just wouldn't worry about Larry as much. And someone made a great point here about Larry that, people need to chill on Larry. He just put 4 guys into the NFL, and it's going to be fine. Do you think the families that were there, do you think they're concerned about – you think like the Sawyers are like, should have committed elsewhere, or the Tuamoloaus, or the Hamiltons, you know what I'm saying, or the Tyleek Williams, who was supposedly an afterthought in recruiting that Larry got and became a first-round draft pick. So shed no tears for Larry. And
and I almost feel like we give too much air to these rumors, that Larry,
Fair.
Yeah, like bringing it up almost puts it back out in the ether that is there a problem? So, I really don't sense that. I just think the ebbs and flows of recruiting are going to point arrows to certain guys at certain times and put a spotlight on you. And, whatever, a certain recruit may make you be a hero for a day. You land a certain kid that someone doesn't like and you're not the hero. But yeah, I really, as I'm thinking about and listening to you guys talk about this, everyone would love to be Larry Johnson out on the road.
And I want to add something. You mentioned Tyleik Williams, Dan. I remember clearly there was, he was a 4-star guy, but I had a recruiter tell me they didn't see it with Tyleik. They were a little surprised. They said that he was a big kid that maybe wasn't in the best shape then and that they thought he was a decent prospect, but they wondered why Ohio State took him, to be honest. And we've seen now why Ohio State took him. The proof is there. They were right.
This is ironic, but the very first job I ever had in journalism, this lets you know, back in the day, I had to drive 45 minutes to cover satellite high school football games for $40, in which there was no internet and you had to drive out there to do it. And I once got a speeding ticket. I looked in my rearview mirror as the cop was walking back to the car, and I'm like, sports writing is just not for me, man. I got to do something else. And then I paid the ticket, and look where we are now. My dog's a star of a podcast, but I digress. It happened to be in Manassas, Virginia, about 3 or 4 blocks from where Tyleik Williams went to high school. He was a 4-star player, Bill, but the Washington Post does something called All Met, which is basically, the DC area has Maryland, Virginia, and DC, and they have an All Met team, just everybody. And Jason Moore was All Met Defensive Player of the Year as a senior. Tyleik Williams was honorable mention when he was a senior. So it can change, man. And I can tell you this, it looks like a who's who up there. So Tyleik was a big time recruitment. Like when you recruit a defensive tackle, if he turns out like Tyleik Williams, that's 100% on the recruiting scale. Kind of like we discussed, we all wanted an offensive lineman. Josh Simmons, they went out and got him as an offensive lineman. We didn't know who he was. He was a right tackle from, wherever, San Diego State. And they turned him into a first-round draft pick. You can't do a better job in the transfer portal than that. It's physically impossible. So sometimes we get a little get out of line there. Oh, look at Chap. Had a painting job in Manassas, Virginia back in 2007. Manassas in 2007, you can guess what the nickname is that some people call it. Don't post it if you come up with it. All right.
Also, I talked a little bit about disadvantages. Ohio State and Georgia have one significant advantage. They're the only big dog in their state.
Correct.
You go down to Florida State, Miami, they're all competing against each other in the same state. There's nobody in Ohio, no other school in Ohio, and there's no other big dog in Georgia that those two schools have to fight against. So that is one positive that Ohio State and Georgia both have going for them.
It's huge. Alabama has Auburn.
Right.
The school up north has the Spartans. Penn State actually has a nice gig, and that's why when they had their dominant run in the Paterno era, they had kind of more of a lockdown there. I guess Pitt you could call a second team, but yeah, Bill, that's key. Look, Ohio, a lot of people, it's very easy to see Ohio has had an advantage over all the Big Ten teams because as much as we have lost in Ohio, the other states have as well. And the teams traditionally in the Big Ten did not produce as many Division I dudes. But now you've added UCLA and USC, that's kind of changed. So this argument probably will lose a little bit of weight as we go forward. All right, speaking of weight, I've got to show you guys something, and that is Ridge Wallet. Look at this. You think you're going to steal something from me? No chance. Look at that. That's my wallet. This thing is sick. Lots of colors. Ridge Wallet is, if you've ever watched Seinfeld and seen the episode where George has the bulky wallet, you know that we've got something good here. It is I'm sorry for 1 sec. Yeah, show the wallet to the camera. Look at this. This is what I'm going to be carrying around. My son's having a graduation party. I'll slip it in there. I don't have the bulky wallet or the square and all my pictures because my wife loves to take pictures. The 4 or 5 people that know me that are watching this are now chuckling. Ultra thin, effortlessly sleek, and surprisingly spacious, kind of like Mark Porter. It holds up to 12 cards plus cash, all without turning your pockets into a lumpy mess. Slips right into your front pocket and practically disappears. Here's another thing it does. I don't know if you guys know this, but people can now, if you have a digital wallet, they walk around with these things that pick up on your little code and they can break into it. Not the Ridge wallet. It's got security, carbon fibers, and space-age materials, built-in RFID blocking tech to keep your card info safe from digital pickpockets. Now, Memorial Day sale coming. Ridge.com, RIDGE.com/Bucknuts. Ridge.com/Bucknuts. Please support our show and tell them we sent you, and you will get a sale deal. All right. Mark. Actually, I tell you what, if there's any questions, let's knock those out. Look at that. This is great.
Mini hands. I like it.
Mini hands, actually, that's the one thing I do got. And my son definitely got. In fact, he went on a recruiting visit and they took a picture of him and gave him 2 balls and he stood with them out like that. And it could palm them both. And they like their point guard. Speaking of which, I appreciate this. People have said on here, I want to get on here and get this out of the way here. My son did commit. He is going to be playing basketball for his grad year at New York University in Manhattan. Had a bunch of offers. Very fortunate. Have jump shot, will travel. If people tell you that sports are just about the top level, it definitely helps if you're going to be a pro to be good and stuff like that. But the idea that other colleges along the way don't allow athletes to get in when their grades maybe don't meet up. Get good grades, but it helps if you're an athlete. Don't let anyone tell you different. So thank you to everybody that
Did you start a GoFundMe so you can go visit him on the weekends?
So I am lucky to be the black sheep in the family.
Manhattan? Wow.
So I'm lucky to be the black sheep in the family. And my brother is not the black sheep and has a little place in Manhattan. So he will be able to go to the games and check out my son, but I don't know about me. In fact, quick memory lane or whatever. I'm the first person in my family raised outside of New York City, which is interesting. So I literally thought until I was 13 that every person's grandparents came from New York City. I never went on a family trip anywhere other than New York City. I was very naive. And then we really haven't been back as a family. So it's kind of come full circle. So everyone's excited. But yeah, should be good fun. And I appreciate the kind words I've gotten from everybody. It's been great. Let's answer whatever questions we have here. If we don't have it, what do you think of this comment? Larry Johnson is this year's Justin Fry. He seems to get flamed on a regular basis, but he just put 4 players in the league. We need a little patience. This will happen. See, some people can pick up on it. All right, Mark, I think we're about to turn this over to you. And here we go. It's been video time. We started out watching some of it. Those of you who were fortunate enough to see it yesterday got a chance to see some. But Mark, tell everybody quickly in 30 seconds what you did over the last X weeks, what you're going to be doing for the next X weeks, and how you acquired such video.
So the video we watched on Tuesday had a ton of prospects in it, and Dan only let us get through a certain amount. The premium members got that yesterday, and going through the boards, I got back to all the comments today. A lot of great players in that breakdown. I went on the road again yesterday down to Chillicothe, Miami Trace, Waverly, and found some prospects and a few names that we've talked about before. But I got to start talking about, 2027 was the first video. Every player we looked at was young. Now, there were a couple 2028s I saw yesterday, and there were some young kids I saw on the road. I saw a kid, Porter Brungard from Anthony Wayne, who's a quarterback, picked up a few offers the day I was there. Trey Remy was a big, tall quarterback I got to see over in Ontario. So these 2028 names are starting to pop up everywhere. Nice-looking quarterback at Westerville North. But when I was on the road yesterday, a name we kind of need to to know about from Chillicothe is a kid, Carte Ligon. And I wanted to call him Cartier. I don't know why, but I had to stop from doing that.
Spell it.
He was a freshman. He's already got a handful of offers. Played tailback because they needed him to as a freshman. He's got receiver skills. He's got a body on him. He's a kid that stands out, and I think in the next couple of years we're going to have to really know who this kid is.
How big is he?
He's got to be 6'1", 190 pounds, so he passes the look test. And speaking of big, just to stir up some dust here, we just looked at Will Greer or Sam Greer last week, and we saw how he looks. So it's only fair that we looked at the other best lineman in Ohio, Adam Guthrie, and see how he looks. And he's coming off an injury. I think he had some type of a leg injury, and he looks pretty good. I mean, these guys are, boy, for being that big, I'd love to have them one on each side. Now, the interesting thing here is, as you see this race, this is Adam Guthrie versus freshman Matthew Bernard. And what's unique here is it's raining. These two are competing. The young freshman is hanging with the senior headed to Clemson. So I think Matthew Bernard picked up some offers yesterday. I know Bowling Green offered him, but he's a guy number 55 in the class of 2028. I have a reason to come back to Miami Trace. So you said, what are we going to start doing in the future? More of these 2027 and 28 guys. You know, Bill, as I see him retweeting the national prospects, it's a lot of 2028 kids, Bill, right? I mean, I think maybe in the 2029, I think Edmund McAllister is a kid down in Columbus that people are talking about as one of the top 2029 kids. He has a track time around 11 flat and 100, and maybe a little plus or minus there. It's pretty good for an 8th grader. So, you know, as we start shifting, I know Bucknuts, you might not hear these names or know Meek out there is probably gobbling this stuff up and going to be doing the research, but our job is probably to put you on the cutting edge. So like we did with like Jameer Brown and some of these other guys, like who showed you these guys first up close and personal? Hopefully us.
Speaking of Jameer Brown, I happened to watch some of the, I don't know where, it might have been G-Walk, which is the big conference around here, you know, with Wayne and Centerville, Beaver Creek and stuff. And my son has my younger son has an AAU buddy who's like his name's Caden, who's going to the U to run the 400, and he's something special. But he also runs the 100 and the 200. So I watched the final. Jameer lost to someone on his team in the 200. I can't remember the dude's name, and I will give him credit for this. Jameer Brown is not a skinny dude. Jameer Brown is not what I would say. Just for me, I thought he was, you know, when you come up and you're heard to be, he's a smaller speed guy. He's built like a running back almost already. I mean, for his age and he is going to be something special, man. I'm trying to think about a guy who ran like that has this body type. He's already built. He's more Brandon Ennis body type than he is. I mean, he's a little bit taller, but he's a jacked dude. And he's not like, he doesn't even look like he's like final jacked. He's kind of like got some baby weight on him still. And he is flying, dude. Like the other guys in the meet, they didn't look like him. You know what I mean? It was a football guy running track. And they always say a track guy playing football. So that was super impressive. Man.
I feel like Captain Buzzkill when kids will give me their times and I'll say you ran that time at 160 pounds. Jameer Brown is running it at 190, 200 pounds. There's a big difference. You know, and track bodies are traditionally flyweights, if you want to put it like boxing terms. You know, like you see the skinny calves, the skinny legs. They don't need any weight for anything. They're not running between the tackles, and they're not taking any hits. So any extra weight to them is like a horse jockey. You know, like does a horse jockey want to weigh 2 pounds more? Heck no. He wants to throw up 5 times before he gets on the horse. And I think when you're talking football players that are fast versus track guys that are fast, Dan, you just really gave us a great illustration. And it is when you see them in person that it hits you like, dude, he's got a 45-pound weight strapped to his back and he's running like these other guys. So there's your visual of that.
I mean, it's boring. It's gotten boring to credit their wide receiver recruiting. But I just hope people understand we are literally we may be in the greatest recruiting run ever at any position in the history of college football. I know that sounds crazy hyperbolic, but if you just keep going into every class and taking the number 1 guy 2 years in advance, I don't understand what could be better, considering we just put Marv out and got. I mean, it's incredible. You will hear people have conversation, but it's like, oh, I forgot Garrett Wilson. Oh, you just forgot him? You know what I mean? It's like, it's incredible. Go ahead, Mark.
Did you see the TikTok of Marvin Harrison after his weight training this year? He looks like he put on
the negativity.
Yeah, I mean, his arms are enormous. I mean, he looks like he's in arm wrestling contests all of a sudden. That's fantastic. I just wonder if it's too much weight to keep that fly. But boy, he looks like David Boston. I mean, it was really impressive. So yeah, he's jacked. He's like, yeah, I've been taking some extra protein.
I know, but my guess is Marv got there by other ways. Legal ways.
He looks jacked,
allegedly. And also, that's another narrative that's gotten out of control, is that Marv didn't have a good freshman year and such, a rookie year. He had more receiving yards and catches, I think, than his dad did. How did his dad end up? Pretty good? Pretty sure he did. Listen, whatchamacallit is Kyler Murray is not. I don't want to.
Yeah.
We're starting this again. I'm going to get fired up. Excuse me. All right.
We'll be talking about the Cowboys before we know it.
No, don't do it. No, we're not going to do that. There's a question here that keeps getting asked, and I've missed it. I want to make sure I get it. Bill, the question is about Deuce Gerald. Christopher Sowers, I apologize. You've asked it several times, and I've missed it. Christopher Sowers asked, Bill, any word on Deuce Gerald? That's not a name we've talked about a ton, Bill. Guess who wants him in the class? Brad. All right. I apologize. Like I said, someone walked in front of the house. How dare they? Bill, Deuce Gerald, who is he, and will they get him?
Well, he is a 6'2.5", 270-pound defensive lineman, and we've talked about Georgia. He is from Sewanee Collins Hill High School in Georgia. He is somebody that Ohio State offered a scholarship to long ago, and he's got he's a high 4-star guy that has, the big offers as we've talked about before. He's got Ohio State and the rest of them, Alabama, and so on and so forth. But he has not announced his official visit schedule yet. Of course, Georgia, Florida State, all those schools have offered him. He's not announced his official visit schedule yet, but he has told me that he is definitely interested in visiting Ohio State. But we don't know. Again, he has not announced his official visit schedule yet.
All right, sir. I appreciate that, Doug. People do love dogs. I will say that. If you're running for office these days, you hold a dog in the picture, you're probably going to win. That's my fear of it. Yeah, exactly. James knows. All right, Bill. Monshin Sales. Did I ambush you there with that name? And if so, I apologize. But
nope,
it's come up a
just
couple
got an
times.
offer from Ohio State.
I thought they were talking about moonshine sales.
Hey, moonshine sales are always up behind the scenes. Let's not digress here. Go ahead, William.
Yeah, he's a wide receiver, one of the very best in the Midwest. In fact, he's one of the best in the country, without a doubt. He is kind of in the Chris Henry Jr. mold in that he is 6'5", about 200 pounds. He is a 2027 guy from Indianapolis Lawrence North High School. And Ohio State has offered him a scholarship. In fact, they just offered him a scholarship yesterday. Another guy that, Brian Hartline, there are 3 really, really top wide receivers in the Midwest for the class of 2027. Hartline already has one of them, Jameer Brown, of course, from Ohio, has committed to Ohio State. Then you've got Sales, who the Buckeyes just offered yesterday. And certainly he is a guy that fits the Ohio State mold. And then Dakota Grant from Michigan. Ohio State offered him a scholarship long ago. He's been to Ohio State multiple times. Those 3 guys are all elite. They are all wide receivers from the Midwest. And, you could put them, all 3 of them, in the top 5 wide receivers in the country for 2027. A little bit unusual for the Midwest to have 3 wide receivers that highly rated in one class.
John Gorby got it right. I should have known better than to think I was ambushing the dean, but that's what happens when you're in class. I also want to mention first Soupy Sales mention on the podcast all time. This podcast has been around for 15 years. We have never had a Soupy Sales, never had anybody talk about Soupy Sales stars. And if you don't know who Soupy Sales is, you're going to Google it and be like, these are the oldest MFers having a podcast going. The fact that I even know that. Let's
we got his video queued up if you want to.
I got it. Hold on a second. Let me make sure. Yep. All right. Mr. Sales, not Soupy. Let's see him go. This is news to us. Let's see it. Video for anybody. Outside receiver.
Throwing that Chris Henry reference out there really set the bar, but watching a few plays while you guys were talking, it's just not fair. You know, like Dan, you just said it. Like, why just take the top couple most freakishly talented guys in the country every year, call it a day, get them drafted in the first round, and call it the best run-on receivers in the history of, the college football or history of any position. I mean, big body guy. I mean, can run. He's got behind coverage. I mean, he went up between the safety and the corner there. I want to be Brian Hartline and just go tap these guys on the shoulder when you see the best receivers, because when you're building your wide receiver room, I mean, the suddenness of a big guy, just the way he came out of his break there, you could see the feet chopping that he's got some speed there. And then, I'm sure this is going to be, when you build this receiver room, you got some big guys, some small guys, some quick guys, some punt returner-like guys, some slot guys. I mean, he just builds a room that can do everything you need. I mean, if you're going to put – will Chris Henry and Jeremiah Smith and this kid ever be on the field at the same time? I mean, they're like three carbon copies of each other. And by the way, I saw a picture of Chris Henry. I know he was 6'4" or 6'5". I think he might be 6'6" or 6'7". Like he's in the like freakishly like the tallest receiver of all time territory.
He's starting to look like Kawhi Leonard, dude. Seriously.
I mean, the receivers don't really get bigger than 6'4", 6'5", Yeah.
Good point here.
I agree with the Terrell Pryor comparison there too.
Oh yeah. Doug's all over it.
Big, strong kid running out there.
Did you see that there was a picture of Chris Henry with Dixon Wyatt? That's right, Caden Dixon Wyatt. And I get confused. I want to say Wyatt Dixon for some reason. Which is it, Bill? Dixon Wyatt.
Caden Dixon Wyatt.
Yeah.
Nice. But I saw a picture with him.
CDY, we got to call him.
And, dude, Henry is considerably bigger than the other receivers. It seems he's kind of dropped out of favor among the recruiting services a little bit because he was hurt. That they're going to regret that. Even ours. I'll say that on the record. Don't have to agree with everything. There was a question here, Bill, I wanted to make sure we got to. That was all right. Eric Turnbull. Ask BK about Kari Wilder. He seems to be moving up OSU's target list. All right, Bill, we'll end with this. Kari Wilder, your thoughts. Who is he? What do we need to know about him?
Well, he's the guy that Ohio State offered him a scholarship on May 7th or 8th. I forget which day. I know it's May 7th or 8th. He's a defensive end edge guy from Gardenia Serra High School in California, and that's a pretty good high school for football prospects for sure. Again, a 2026 guy. Larry Johnson and Matt Patricia stopped to visit him. Again, they offered him a scholarship May 7th or May 8th. And earlier this week, I think it was on Tuesday, in fact, I'm almost positive it's Tuesday, that they stopped to visit him. He has not, as far as I know, confirmed that he's going to make an official visit to Ohio State, but I would be a little surprised, actually, if he doesn't. He does have official visits set to UCLA June 6th and Washington June 20th. So he's a guy to keep in mind for Ohio State as they look for 2026 defensive linemen.
Harold Carmichael reference. We are definitely the first Ohio State podcast to have Harold Carmichael and Soupy Sales referred to in the same show. So you think you've seen some stuff. You haven't seen enough. All right. I'm going to have to let you guys go there. We're about to get to 40 minutes, and then I got to pay overtime. We appreciate these guys stopping by. Bill, I assume this weekend is somewhat the calm before the storm. If it's recruiting visits, what do you expect from the weekend on the recruiting side?
Right now, I would say the calm before the storm. Next weekend, 1 week from right now on this podcast, I am sure we are going to be talking about the official visitors coming into Ohio State. We've talked about them already more than once. And it's a really, really good group, including Felix Ojo and Savion Hyder.
Here's the good news. The weather in Ohio feels like fall. It's awful. This is one of the worst, coldest stretches of spring we've had, and dark, gray. However, it's supposed to break middle of next week. Should be 70 and sunny with no humidity like San Diego and Columbus for the recruits. That's always a good deal. We appreciate everybody stopping by. Have a good one. Nutters of Buck.